Hi everyone, welcome to AI for the Average Joe Season 3, Episode 6. We're going to be talking agentic AI today with the fabulous Polly Watts. Polly is the co-founder and CEO of WhatNext.ai and is going to share with us some fabulous insights, some of the work that she's been doing recently. Hello Polly, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Hope you guys are okay.
Yeah,
Good,
we
thank
Uh,
are.
you.
We're good. Sweltering in the UK currently, so
yes, very, very hot here.
yeah,
But slightly poached here, I think.
yes.
Um,
In lovely, I think you're on the mainland, aren't you, in France?
I am. I'm in Normandy, so nowhere very exciting, but I've been here for 30 years now.
Very
Oh,
nice, very nice. So tell us a bit about yourself, Polly, what you do, what you've been working on, and what you want to share with the listeners and the watchers in this episode.
Okay, so historically, I'm from an L&D background. I was in higher education forever. And then I went into LMS administration during COVID, and then I retrained as an instructional designer and led an instructional design department for an NGO for quite a long time. But in October, we separated ways, and I felt like in a lot of ways that my career in learning had slightly disappeared. So at that point, I have slowly been pivoting again. I was going to consult and go into companies and look at their systems and their processes and their leadership and their knowledge management, which having come out of a company where those things were not brilliant,
I
I
don't
was
know if I've ever seen it done really well personally, so
no, it was done increasingly less well over the time I was there. Like we'd had the whole of the leadership bar two people leave in the kind of year preceding my departure. So it was a slightly desperate time, I suppose. It's like every Monday meeting was like, oh my God, who's left
yeah,
this week?
I
Anyway,
remember.
and so I came out of there thinking, uh, okay, the companies really need someone to consult on this, and scale ups particularly. They go from that kind of small company with a few people who are mates, and then they expand, and the systems and processes just don't cope with the extra people, and all the knowledge is in someone's head, and if that person leaves it's all kind of over. And then I did a course with AI Build Lab, and they talk about creating agents, and it's a 5-week course, and it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing, and it immediately changed everything.
Yeah,
Instead of being a So I was creating a tool for me to consult with, right? So I'd be able to go into a company and gather the information quickly and run analysis on it, all using agents. Well, that was my idea. And then I'd go into the company and I'd have all this knowledge and it will be very good. And then all the tools gradually took over, and became the business. And the consulting was like, yeah, we'll leave that for someone else.
yeah.
So I had a chat with a guy called Mike Voss, and by the end of 30 minutes, I was like, "Oh, do you want to join me?" Because he was the first person who'd really kind of got what I was trying to do.
That first follower,
And,
so
and it was
important.
like, "Oh," so now I have a business partner, which is a bit random,
Amazing.
in Canada. So that's totally unpractical, but is good. And we have sort of slightly different skill sets. And he also is from a consulting background, but more of a CMO. And so the tool in itself, so agentic AI is having it's it's not so different from ChatGPT or whatever, but you create agents that do the work without further input from you. So you create a bit like a GPT, and you give instructions, and it's self-improving. So you create which, like you would for GPT, you create a set of system instructions. So that's telling the agent what you want it to do, how you want it to do it, and what you want it to produce at the end. And it gives you what you ask it, and then you go, okay, I didn't expect that to happen. And you go back and you say, okay, change your system instructions. Either you change them or you ask it to change them itself. It's capable of kind of correcting itself, and you keep going back and having that kind of discussion with it to get the results that you want. So I'm using two levels. So the first is I'm using 11 labs, and that is I use a voice, what I would call a voice agent. So same thing, you put in system instructions, you tell it what you want it to do. You can either use a knowledge bank, and a knowledge bank is a set of files. So it could be Word, it could be mostly PDFs, or a lot of the tools connect to something like Google Drive or to Notion. So you have this is how we talk about the thing, this is how we do the thing, this is how we want the thing to look. And
It's
you
almost like your operational processes type things, or
completely,
written down, your ops manuals, yeah, your SOPs, those kind of things.
absolutely. And it can be quite a lot of information that you're giving it. So either you give it information like that and say, this is what I want, go for your life.
Yeah.
And it will literally do its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with that is it's a little bit unpredictable
Yeah.
about how it's going to achieve its aims. So that is something you need to be a little bit aware of. So the way I use 11 Labs for what we're doing is I give it a set of questions that I want it to ask a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's not, and then I say, if necessary, ask a follow-up question if you need more information to achieve my objectives. So it has a little bit of freedom, but not too much.
So it doesn't have its own agency, because I know there's a lot of scaremongering and kind of risk communication. Don't give AI its own agency, because this is how we get to, like, Skynet and Judgment Day and that kind of stuff. So we're not talking about that stuff, are we?
Or your company gets sold in the meeting you didn't bother going to. So it's so it's a thing called temperature on agents, and the higher it is, the more freedom you're giving it. So if you set it, my experience is they're all out of one. So if you set it to 1, it's going to totally do its own thing.
Yeah.
It's going to really do whatever it likes, and not convinced you'd get the result you wanted. Or you can make it down to pretty much 0, and the closer to 0 it is, the stricter it is. So for example, if you wanted it to write a report, you'd want to have it maybe at 0.3, because you want all those bits of the report to appear. You don't want it to go, well, actually, I've decided to write a completely different report because it was more interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we take those interviews that we're running. So we go into companies and we run interviews. So we have a set of questions for employees, a slightly different set of questions for managers, and a slightly different set of questions for senior leadership, but they're all covering the same 13 main dimensions that you would get in a company.
So are we talking what, culture and
culture,
careers
leadership,
and okay,
tools, knowledge management,
yeah,
that kind of thing. So really,
management, leadership,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly that. Okay, so those are the things that, as a consultant doing what we were doing, that's the information that you kind of need to get out so that you know what needs to change, right? And so I'm going to share.
yeah, great.
I'm afraid it's really not very exciting what I'm sharing, but
I think it'll be very exciting for a lot of people. So
I was going to say, I'm just listening on sort of out of interest, really, because I've not seen the ability to be able to do this before. So it'd be great to see, Polly.
I think I'm sharing something completely irrelevant for the moment, but we will get there. So obviously all the things at the top. So these are like what we would describe as the 3 major categories.
Yeah.
And then we have, these are the subcategories: strategic alignment. These are what we were talking about there, right? So
this is what you're scoring through interviews through the Agentic AI.
Exactly. So these are the questions that we're just asking 17 questions. And from that, we're getting information about all these things. And then it is each one of those those dimensions is divided into 12 or 13 indicators. So like this is strategic alignment. You can see how we break that down. So I don't know if you can see that, but
go on, Hayley.
Sorry, this all goes into the 11 Labs. Is that what you're saying, Polly? And then
so 11 Labs is asking the questions to get this information out. Okay, so then it goes into NAN, which is for us, it's really a database above all, but it's where you can store data, etc., etc. And it's I don't know the best way to describe it. It's like a module, so you can stick things to it. You can make so the information comes in, then you can do something to the data, then you can send the data somewhere else, and you can do something else with it. so you're kind of moving it through a workflow, and
Yeah.
then
Okay.
ask comes out and it goes into another piece of software that I absolutely love called Cassidy. And this Cassidy it analyzes all the data. So in Cassidy, we create an agent called Ria, and Ria analyzes absolutely all the data. And from these interviews, she is producing a massive amount of kind of minor data.
Yeah.
And so there are 132 indicators that are coming out of these 17 questions.
17 questions. So when you said earlier that the Agentic AI can ask prompting questions and things, what need would there be for that if the 17 questions are kind
So
of...
if someone gave a really short answer that didn't
Okay.
really give the AI all the information that it knows it needs to gather, it would then ask it would ask us sort of like, and can you tell me a bit more about that kind of question to get more information out?
So
Because
clever.
it knows it needs to answer all these things. It needs to get data. So, and then the analysis agent takes all the interviews. So it could take 1,000 interviews in one go and analyze them all. So it would analyze all the employees and it would produce anonymized aggregated data. And where there was a big gap. So I don't know if you can see here. So you've got the employee score and the senior leader score. And you can see that here, these are out of 2, that a perception gap between the senior leadership and the employee score is quite high. So that's like 25%. And you would say that if there's a 25% difference, that's probably not a great thing.
Yeah.
And so knowledge management, that's really typical because it's all in the leader's head.
Yeah.
But the people actually trying to do the work can't access the people's heads. So so this is a really common area.
Classic organizational challenge, and especially founder-led organizations as well, and people when leaders are too close to the actual doing the work. That tends to be. Do you have any time saving like tracking on any of this? Because this stuff, I did some of this when I was heading up leadership and talent at Virgin. This stuff takes a long time, even if you're using systems to do it. The scoring and the data calibration and the...
Okay, so the interviews take like 30 minutes per person. You can do them anywhere that you've got internet. So you can do them in the car, doing the washing up, doing anything. You don't have to and you can do them simultaneously. So there's that massive saving there. As we can do as many interviews with the system as like just hundreds at a time, really. There's no limits at that end. And then at the other end, we say that we could analyze the data and get you your reports and everything within about 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
But that is because we are the humans in the loop and we're having to go through and make sure.
So you're still quality checking and
that what we're saying is true.
Yes.
It's true and fair and right. And the other thing we sort out, so we have a question that helps define who is who's kind of what we would describe as sort of hidden heroes. Does that make sense? So it's the people, we ask a question and you say the 5 people that you would choose to create a team with that have no previous knowledge management. So no one's an expert in the company and you've been asked to do a thing. Who would you choose on your team? And so those tend to be the hidden heroes. They're the people with kind of excellent collaboration skills, who know where everything is, who know is the right person to ask, those kind of hidden links in a company. And the great doers tend to come out in those questions. But we also ask about blockers, and those blockers might be people, they might be
they often are people, let's face it.
Well, I'm trying not to say they're always people, but or systems, there might be a thing that doesn't work, or you don't have, not everyone has access to Notion and all the information's in Notion or whatever it is. So that's a kind of blocker. And those also come out in the report. So the analysis agent is also looking for that information, like who the good, who's the bad, and it puts all that into a report. And we need to make sure that it's acceptable.
Yes,
not throwing anyone under the bus. Yeah.
Well, maybe. and so like we present all that information in a dashboard and a report, but it might be a consultant has employed us to help them as they go into a company. It might not be the company itself, because not many companies are up for that kind of introspection.
I was going to say, I bet, obviously AI won't kind of sense the whole, oh, this is a difficult conversation, or it won't chicken out from asking that really difficult question that are potentially, we've all been there. You've got the list of questions and you get to it and actually you lose your bottle a little bit. So by default, this is going to unearth all of the rough as well as the hidden gems that you're talking about. Which is a good thing if you've got, I guess, a client or a leadership team who wants the warts and all.
Yeah.
But I can
Who
imagine
wants to know? But
yeah.
I mean, who wants to know?
Well,
I guess
indeed.
that's all part of how you set it up, isn't it? And how you talk about it and how you prepare people for it. And I was just thinking as well about, because there's obviously so many questionnaires out there, isn't there, that assess leadership capabilities and behaviors and all that stuff. And I suppose it's what makes this different. And just hearing you, Polly, I'm sort of thinking, well, is it because you can get closer because the prompting questions kind of build on the answers? Or is it how quickly you can analyze the data? Where's the big difference here when using AI?
The first big difference, I think, is actually the fact that it's so the voice agent, Alex, is anything you tell them is going no further. Like it's never going to say, oh, Haley said this about you.
Yeah.
And Erica said that about you. So you can completely say what you think.
Yeah, nice.
And the fact that you don't have to be sat at a desk, I don't know the last time you did a written blooming questionnaire about 360 feedback or whatever it is, but you write it 3 times. You like the difficult ones, you write it and you're like, come back to that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get sacked. So you start off maybe by, well, personally, I start off with the truth and then I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
too much truth. I'll go back. And then you get all these cultural differences. So which is why we never use numbers in the kind of questionnaire bit, is because so if you're being interviewed if you're using like Polish people are part of your team. My team was Poles in my last company, and 3 out of 10 was a success for them, whereas the English give 9 out of 10 everywhere because they don't want to upset anybody. So you get huge cultural differences and it over loads of cultures, and so we never use numerical questions. Like it's never a Likert scale saying what would you give them out of 5 or whatever, or 4. We use just these questions and we're using sentiment analysis. So I think the first difference
that's interesting.
is that you can say what you want and not have it land on your head. We don't do companies of less than 25 people because we can't be sure that the data will be anonymous if there are too few people. The speed is just astonishing, and the quantity of the indicators that the system is capable of finding out data and doing an aggregated score for is just extraordinary. It's really amazing. It is really amazing. Wow. And we sit there going, I can't believe that happened. And it literally in very little time you can put in 50 interviews into, and it just sucks them all up and then spits out the data. And then I run the data through a second, like, so if I'm using Claude for this, which I am, because I find Claude gives better everything for this because it's all verbal. So when I use Claude in 11 labs, I get better questions. If I use ChatGPT, it asks all the questions like a machine gun. And
interesting.
And you don't have time to answer them. And that's so so there's different models produces different results. And then the same for the analysis. You don't get such great analysis in some LLMs comparison to others. So it's a matter of like making decisions about that, trying it out, and then running the results through another LLM to check and do evals, which evaluation, everything you do with an agentic AI, you should evaluate it to check that the results are always consistent and constant, because that is always the risk with agentic AI, is that it's gone off on its own journey a little bit.
Back down to the agency and the 1 to 0 scoring if you're given it, and back like to the principles we always talk about. It's a start, it's not a finish. Quality assure it, quality check it, make sure you're still accountable for the messaging and the data, and that's that human AI collaboration piece rather than just outsourcing everything to the AI.
Completely. I mean, it is very, very clever what you can do, but it is important. So I was just gonna get up something from, so this is what Cassidy looks like, and in here just to show people, so you have assistants, so these are the assistants that I've created, and they do different things. So I created one that is a psychotherapist. I created one that does LinkedIn network profile, so you can create them to do whatever you like. And then, and what's lovely about this one, so for example, if I went into LinkedIn, this is probably a bit more interesting. I can click here and well, I can choose this person who I don't know and say, write me a profile. And it will just, it will go, and it will write me a profile, and you can say, make it relevant to what I do so that I know how to connect with this person better. And so it's, and it tells you what it's doing, if that makes sense.
Wow. Okay.
All the time.
It's intel gathering constantly, isn't it? And it's like, that's a really good example of just headspace, time saving, better quality, better intel, better information. And we go on and on and on about specific in HR and L&D about the right data and knowing your data and all this kind of stuff. And this is a really good example of that.
Yeah, so it's very, so it's all about that kind of thing and working out what works for you. And then so here you'd have, you create an assistant, and then you create a workflow. So this is what I'm working on at the moment. So in the workflow, you'd have something that starts the workflow working, which was just our case would be having the transcripts. And then it goes through its knowledge base, and that's one sort of part of the process. And then it analyzes the interviews, and each step you're telling which agent you want it to use for each step. Then it generates the tables, then it writes a full report, then it writes a short report, etc. And it exports it as a PDF, then it emails it to us. And those are all the things you can put in a workflow in this tool, but the same, you could do the same thing in N8N or any other tool. That this is
GPT. I think ChatGPT has its GPT stuff, doesn't it? And it's stuff that you can have, but this looks like it's clearer. And I just love the fact, again, natural language processing. You don't need to know Java or Python or anything, whereas pre kind of 2000s, you would have needed to know all that for this.
So here, for example, this morning I was doing the write a full report section here. And so I was asking itself what I needed to put into this section. So if I click on this, because you're like, well, what needs to be in here?
What do you need? Yeah, what do you need to do the job?
What's the knowledge that I need to put in here? And it gave me a full prompt that I needed to use it, a full report. It gave me everything I needed to put in there to make it work.
That's the stuff that blows people's minds, and I get that in workshops all the time. Is they say, well, what should I ask ChatGPT what it needs? And I said, well, you've just asked the question, go and ask ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever you're using what it needs. And when people get that light bulb moment, they're like, oh my god, like, it's a bit meta for people, isn't it? It's a bit of a dream within a dream within a dream type thing. It's brilliant. So
it is. So things like, so it's got these own templates which are also workflows, but it'd be like you're going into a meeting and it will tell you what the people going into the meeting with you do, where they're from, what they're up to, etc. So that is really an interesting way of working.
Wow.
It's very.
So Polly, what are the main sort of tools that you're using? You've got Cassidy AI, 11 Labs. You've mentioned a few. What are the tools that you'd recommend for people who want to have a go at this stuff?
Okay, I was wondering whether I had it on this computer. Okay, I don't. So one of the tools, and I don't know how much I love this, but it is what they recommend, is one called Typing Mind.
okay.
So Typing Mind has its own agent, sorry. And you can, so it has its own agents, so it has various agents that you can use that are already there. But when you're using it, so you choose, when you have a chat with it, you can choose which large language model you want to use, and you can change mid-chat. So you're like, okay, I think we can do better on that and something else. So that is useful. I like that. And
that's typingmind.com. Is that free or subscription?
It's $99 for a lifetime license.
Oh, nice.
Oh wow, okay.
That's well worth it.
Yeah, but the downside is that you need to use API. I say that you need to set up an account. you know, where they take credits. So you're paying for your credits. So if you're going
Okay.
to run something huge in it, you're going to
Yeah.
have to pay for the credits. And although you get a massive amount of information for like 1p, that is one thing you need to be aware
Okay.
of. So it runs with APIs. It does have free versions as well, free LLM models that you can use. But if you want to use the kind of more expensive ones, then you do need to link it.
Well, we'll tag Typing Mind into this post, and maybe somebody will watch it and give us some free credits. You never know.
That would be nice. Cassidy absolutely blows my mind. I absolutely love it. 11 Labs I quite like, but I don't entirely trust.
Okay.
Yeah, I quite like Retail AI, except for their service. Their client service is not very good. And that is, of course, you know, like when your company sort of relies on it, you need that to be good.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
Honest.
absolutely.
Yeah.
to be good. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
use Perplexity, I use ChatGPT, I use
So you're using a whole range of LLMs really then for lots of
Claude.
different things. Yeah.
So ChatGPT I used to create my whole business. So it was my thought partner. It was pushing me along all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what about this? What about that? How do we do this? You know,
That's
like,
what it's really good for.
it's really what it's good for. It's like a thought partner
Mm.
for all those kind of systems and processes, and how do you do it, and what do I need, etc., etc. And sometimes you're getting so much information you don't know quite what to do with it. Claude, I think, is better at, or 3.7 upwards is better at anything that is language. So if that is writing reports, is actual languages. I mean, like not just the use of languages, but French, English, German, you know,
Okay.
whatever those languages are, or writing code.
Well, as in
or
translation, do you mean, or?
Yeah, some
Okay.
translation, but
Yeah.
also writing JSON and writing those kind of files. I think it's also very, very much better currently
Brilliant.
than ChatGPT.
Loads of different tools, Polly, isn't
Sorry.
there, that you're using? No,
Amazing.
no, it's fine.
Oh,
It's fine.
and Bolt. Bolt,
Okay.
utterly amazing, Bolt. I can't recommend it enough. So we just done the hackathon for that. Let me see if I can just get into
You're
Bolt.
right down the rabbit hole with this, aren't you?
Bolt was fantastic. Bolt, you just put in a... So this is what we created with Bolt. Will it come up? So this is Bolt. This is the back end of Bolt. So you put in here, you put in a message saying, create me an app that, I don't know, is a calendar and does amazing things. I don't know. And so that all my student friends can be in contact with me, and we can use it as a meeting place for tennis trips over the summer. I don't know, something really random. And you just put that message in there and it does it. So we created this thing, which is a sort of friction. How much is friction costing your company? And we'll be using that.
And it creates the
whole
front
thing.
page, it's already set on a website, it's got its domain.
Yeah, everything.
Like,
So it
if I was a web developer, that would be really scary.
Yeah, I would be looking to retrain quite quickly. So that would be my advice. So there we go. That is, if you want to try a tool and have fun. I showed my 19-year-old how to use this last week, and she went and created a revision app for her university.
Amazing.
So it is richly out of the box. You can put in like your colors for your company, your logo, your thing, email addresses that you want reports sent to. You know, you can use it as lead generation. You can use it as anything, really. This is very neat.
Nice. I will be definitely looking at that this afternoon. Thank you, Polly.
A Quantum Rise app.
Yeah, it's on its
There we
way.
Oh yeah,
go.
no, totally.
It's on its way.
And lead generation. So like, because people
Brilliant.
are putting in, so if I show you here, they're putting in a name and address, email address, and then they're filling in a few questions in our case, and then they're calculating the friction in their company, which is how much it's costing for your company to work badly, basically. Then that really is kind of handy.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Polly. You've been such a pleasure to speak to and given us quite a few different ideas and things to look at, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's always great having guests on Average Joe that are doing something different and kind of pushing the boundary in regards to this stuff, and bring in the new definition of, agentic AI, for example, to an audience that might not be familiar with that. So thank you so much for bringing that to us today. Polly, if people want to contact you and connect and learn more and all that good stuff, what's the best way to get in contact?
Probably LinkedIn, or send me an email. It's polly@whatnext.org, but either
Yep.
is fine. And I love networking so more. And I'm obviously very happy to talk about this stuff until the cows come home, because this is, I spend my life doing this, and it is possibly quite an individual pursuit.
Well, thank you so much for being so open and transparent and generous with the knowledge and the time that you've shared today.
No worries.
And thank you for joining us on today's episode. And for those who have watched today's episode, thank you very much for watching today's episode. And we will no doubt be back with episode 7 very, very soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Polly.
guys.